Yeah, hi, Kim. I'm sharing my screen. Please, can you see?
We can all see it and we can hear you very well too.
Oh, great. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to 2023. You have my best wishes for this year. So I'll be making a brief presentation on our project with TRECK, the Regional Transportation Center in Kumasi here. That's what our Teach Fund project. We got the Teach Fund around two projects approved, and ours was tailored on the USAID Development Objective 2, which was on sustainable and broadly shared economic growth. And our thematic area for our project then was modeling the transport systems and then logistics. And this was our objective. Essentially, we wanted to leverage on the emerging digital innovations to address transportation challenges in West Africa as a response to some of the questions in the Sustainable Development Goals. We worked with TRECK, and TRECK is one of our ACE centers, Africa Center of Excellence in KNUST, and they focus on transportation and logistic problems for West Africa. TRECK trains only graduate students, and they recruit their graduate students from ECOWAS, which is the Economic Community of West African States, and they're supposed to address regional problems within West Africa. Most of their issues has to do with the rapid urbanization that we're experiencing in Africa, especially West Africa. And then the three areas that TRECK is looking at has to do with noise pollution. It has to do with commuting time, designing the roads and the networks and transportation, modes of transportation, because we principally have the informal public transportation system, which is the paratransit system. We do not, most of our countries do not have the well-structured public transportation system. I think Nigeria has a train system within the city and within some states. Ghana doesn't have intercity train system. So essentially, that's what they're looking at. They were also to look at the logistics problems, but logistics and goods transportation problems has been taken out of TRECK, is been moving to CARISA. Now, CARISA is another ACE center, which is in the business school. And this was because the programs in logistics and transportation of goods and runs in the business school. So it was decided by the university that the transportation component of the TRECK issue should be handled by CARISA in the business school as opposed to the TRECK Center, which is domiciled in the Civil Engineering Department in KNUST. Essentially, what TRECK seeks to achieve is to address public transportation challenge that we have, so that the answer or our response to it is on a global scale and not on the individualistic scale, which is not environmental friendly, it is not resource friendly, it also affects our commuting time. It has a lot of challenges that it brings on board. More so, we have a population that is fast outrunning or outstripping our resources on our infrastructural system. If you look, for instance, at some of our cities, you will see that some of our city transportation system could pose a nightmare for you if you're traveling at peak periods. So most of their interest is on how to solve public transportation challenges. My screen is frozen. So our TEACH project looked at two aspects. One was what can we do to improve our lab's capacity, which one of the TEACH objectives of the TEACH Fund was to build capacity within the lab as well as address a development challenge with a partner. We didn't have to be with a partner. Anyway, ours was just that we wanted to work with a policy partner, which we had in our university, and that was TRECK. So for the lab, to build our capacity, we focused on how could we situate ourselves to better support TRECK, because we were using TRECK as a pilot to show in the university community that if we can support TRECK and the results can then be used as a platform to support other centers that we have in the university. And we have about 6 centers in the university that are potential collaborators for us if our TRECK goes very well. So for within the lab, we chose to identify what were the essential skills that we needed to work with TRECK. And for within TRECK, we try to identify what skills and what competencies they needed to achieve their research objectives, as well as to develop policy briefs from their research output. So how did we approach this for lab? We built capacity. For the other side, the TRECK, we design and implement training programs for them, and then also come up with an agreement with them for a long-term collaboration. And this has to do with their thesis research as well as publications of research work done by their postgraduate students. This is extended beyond the TRECK, the Teach Fund timeline, which has officially ended. So basically what we were trying to do with them and what they wanted us to do, we met with them in September 2021, and what they wanted us to do was to introduce their students to strong statistical methodologies for their collection, for their dissemination, and for their analysis of transportation data. And they also wanted us to assist them to quantify capacity for the transport systems and the mobility challenges that we have in West Africa that their students were doing their research on. And the final one was how to translate their research into policy formulation or policy informing or making suggestions to policy, which was to create insight for decision-making for the policy makers in transportation. Oops, sorry. So for KNUST-LISA, our first workshop was May 2021, and where we covered introduction to data and discrete choice modeling, structural equation modeling, which is the 2 statistical models that they often use. We also did the R, because some of them were not interested in how to write their codes for in R, so we give them the option. We ran 2. You could use R, you could also use Stata, because our department has the license for Stata, so we shared that with them. And then we met with them after we had done our training. We met with them on 28th of September 2022, which was our major stakeholder meeting with them. We had a full complement of their team and our team. And then it was decided that we should have a pre-workshop survey on their students and some of their staff who were interested in participating, and then report this to TRECK, and then they would then decide on how they wanted us to engage them. And we did this pre-workshop survey in October 2022. And then, oh, sorry, this should have been 2020, yeah, 2021, sorry, not 2022. This is 2021, September 2021, October 2021, my apologies there. And then afterwards, after they decided when and what tools essentially they felt they needed most, we had a workshop in February 2022. We also had another workshop in June 2022. So the 2 aspects that are still ongoing is the thesis co-supervision that we have embarked on with them, as well as the publications of their research work. We're working with them continuously on that. So the outputs we were using and looking for to be able to assess how we succeeded or how much we had not succeeded in our collaboration with TRECK or on our TEACH project. We had the output we were looking for, and also how we're going to measure this output, what were the indicators we're going to use to measure our outputs. So one was to enhance our lab team capacity. So how many members of the lab are able to effectively collaborate with TRECK, and we have quite a number of us now working with their students. Then how many publications are related to our Teach Fund project, and we have already reported on that in our check-in forms that we received from Kim. We also now look at the TRECK section. How do we measure if we have indeed enhanced the TRECK capacity? One is how many participants took part in the workshop, especially those who participated in both the first and the second workshop. Then the number of research projects that we completed with them on the TEACH fund, and the number of publications or presentations. They have made some presentations at conferences. The thesis, we do not have any completed thesis, but we do have about 4 draft theses now submitted. And then we also have a number of publications, and 2 additional ones were accepted in December. On the policy outcome or policy effect of what our TEACH Fund project is doing with TRECK, we're looking at the number of policy-related research topics that the students embarked on, and if we can report on any policy briefs developed from the research. For the TRECK students, they're supposed, part of the requirement for their thesis is to have a policy brief submitted along with the thesis. And because we do not have any completed thesis as yet, we cannot report on any number of policy briefs developed from their research. So our timeline events, we first had our meeting, May 2021. During there was a 3-day training program, 53 participants, day 1, 45, and 39 for day 2 and day 3. That was for KNUST-LISA. We had our postgraduate students and our lab members participating. We also had some participants coming from Women in STEM who were interested in the STATA component of the workshop, which was on the first day. So we opened it to them, and they were part of that. And then in October 2021 was when we did the needs assessment. And following our needs assessment, we had our first workshop in February 2022. We had a hybrid workshop for the first workshop, which was you could either come in person or join online. So this was a combination of both in-person and online participants. So we had 69 day 1, 54 day 2, and then 62 for day 3. That was for February 2022. What we had in June last year was time with a statistician. So it was more like a do-it-yourself thing, because at that time, the students had collected their research data. They had come back from the field. So what we did was you would have times where this particular consultant would be available. So if your research question or research problem is in my domain, you know what time I'm going to be available. We had a place provided by TRECK. So we ran that for 2 days where the students would come in and then bring their work, but we were not doing this for them. We wanted them to do it themselves, but we supervised that whatever they were doing. And when they ran into challenges, then we came in because we wanted them to be able to handle this themselves. What we do not have end to presently is a thesis support, because we agreed to help them until completion of their thesis. Now, I should also mention that when the logistic component was moved to CARISA, the initial proposal was only for PhD students. So to replace the CARISA group, the TRECK Center added their master student. That's why you see the numbers are kind of on the high side. These are not all PhD students. So they added the master students. So everything we now did, instead of focusing on only their PhD students, was both for their master students as well as for their PhD students. I presently co-supervise about 3 of their students on PhD. I know Samuel Jamra of our team is also working with some students. Isaac Mensah of our team is also working with some students. Emmanuel Oguredu is also working with some students. So this goes beyond our Teach Fund project, but we want to see this to a logical conclusion so that we can have an evidence-based report to give to other centers in the university, that if we were able to do this with TRECK, we should be able to support your center as well. I want to thank you for listening. I hope I didn't take too much of your time. And then just to add that it's the beginning of the new year. It's very good if we just to take the time to determine what we want to achieve this year and be deliberate and purposeful about it. and then we can guarantee our success and not necessarily leave it to happen by chance. Thank you very much.